Happy Thursday or Friday, wherever you are in the world. This is the weekly stream on StreamYard and on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Twitter. So it's good to see you guys. We're going to be talking about how do you deal with nasty people? How do you deal with people that are just in your way? Each week, this turns out to be a download based upon your feedback. Every week, I'm learning tons of stuff involved with lots of things, and I just want to be able to share with all of you as much of it as I can, as it's appropriate or relevant to you. So, Joel, students, saludos. Okay, good to see you, Joel. So again, if you have comments, just comment into the chat on Facebook and let me know what's going on. Need this topic this week, Kieran says, how to deal with upset people. Okay, good. Not just upset people, just people that are just downright nasty, okay? They're just like in your way, you know what I'm saying? So we're going to talk about that, plus whatever else that you guys bring up that I can help you with. So first of all, is a shout out, and where all this body of information comes from is last weekend we did a Train the Trainer event, a 2-day online Train the Trainer event for Brazil. So it was a very, very big shout out to the whole Brazilian team. Probably they're all over Instagram right at the moment, but to be able to say they did a great job hosting it. We had over 179 people, even at the very end, that wanted to know more about being great teachers and leaders. And part of this topic is part of that conversation. Why? Because it's one of the biggest reasons that people don't present, or one of the biggest reasons people are afraid to get in front of a room, because they're afraid of negative feedback, or they're afraid that somebody's not going to like them. All those things. So I'm going to do my best to give you some hints, and maybe if you've got some, you could bring those up as well. Okay. Olabode, Michael Olabode, good to see you. Wonderful. Okay. And also one more shout out before I start is that we begin a Master Facilitator program, Master Facilitator, which is a more advanced level of teaching, where we actually teach this little piece that I'm going to be talking to you about today. And that's mostly the predominant number of those people are from India and from all around the world as well. So that starts tomorrow. So anyway, how do you deal with upset people, or how do you deal with people that are in your way, or how do you just change the mood level of somebody else? Because here's the thing. If you're on this call, if you're like most people that I hang around with, you have goals. You have goals, you have aspirations, you have dreams. And the biggest obstacle that stands between you and those dreams has 2 legs and hair, typically. And that's other people. Because there's 2 problems. There's 2 issues. Number one, you need people to get where you want to go in life. You need to have a team. You've heard me talk about over and over and over again. But that's on one side. On the other side, the biggest resistance, besides your own little voice, is the little voices and the behaviors of other people, right? So how do you need them, but you hate them, but you love them, but you need them. And so how are you going to handle all that? So Libardo, hello from Colombia. Good to see you. Good to hear from you or see your text. Again, if you have comments about this, type it in the chat box. Hello from India. Gaurav, my good friend up late at night. Hopefully I'm going to see you at MFP tomorrow. So let's kind of understand this. Most people, we're going to go on the assumption that most people are basically good people. Now, you've got some people that are just a little psychotic. They don't have all the oars in the water. They have specific issues that need to be handled, and those need to be handled professionally. But that's not the majority of people. The majority of people in the right environment are good on any given day. In the wrong environment, they are not. So how do you deal with this? Again, assuming that a person is a good person and would, given the choice between being apathetic, not caring at all, or antagonistic, or being enthusiastic, I'm just going to ask you to type in the box here. What would you rather be? And I think the answer is going to be pretty obvious. Let me see if a couple hello from the Maldives. Nice. Wow. I'd like to go there one day. So what is it? Okay. Which would you rather be? I think most people would rather be enthusiastic because you feel better. Your view of the world is better. Everything looks good. You're optimistic, all those kind of good things, right? So everybody wants to be enthusiastic. So with that assumption, I learned something a long time ago from several of my great teachers. It's called a mood scale or an emotional tone level, whatever you want to call it, that ranges from all the way down to from despair and apathy all the way up to enthusiasm, with probably about 20 different levels in between. So why is that important? I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'm going to give you a very big hint here, how to deal with people. Let's use the scenario that you're enthusiastic about a new program that you're developing, or a new topic that you want to talk about, or whatever that is that you're really excited, right? You go up to a family member, see if this is familiar. You go up to a family member, all excited. I'm really excited about this topic, and I think a lot of people will benefit. And what you get back from your spouse or from a family member is something like, yeah, so what? Who cares? Right? So immediately, what's your mood levels where? Your mood levels up here, enthusiastic and high interest, and theirs is a what? Apathy. They don't care. As a matter of fact, they're a little negative or cynical about it. Now, if you looked at the scale of all the levels in between, what's the problem? The problem is you're too far apart. You're too far apart. Now, if you don't need that person to be part of your team or whatever, then you can kind of just blow it off and move on your way. But if it's somebody that's on your team and somebody whose relationship you really value, like a spouse or a family member, then you don't want to alienate it simply because they're in a bad mood. Okay, so how do you handle this? I'll give you an example. For me personally, many years ago, when I was first getting into teaching business, I was traveling a lot. My wife and I were newlyweds. I was very broke, and I'm running around trying to get gigs, corporate gigs, to do training and teaching with companies. I was in New York City, staying with a friend for a few days, having appointments with different companies, and nothing was beneficial. Nothing was happening. And finally, one day on a Friday afternoon, I got a call. I went to talk to a company by the name of Bankers Trust. Now, Bankers Trust no longer exists. It's now Deutsche Bank. And they said, we're very interested in your team development program. We'd like to work with one of our groups, blah, 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 blah. And it was like I hit the jackpot in my mind. The drought of income had been so long and so bleak that I was ecstatic. I don't even remember the conversation. Said, could we see you on Monday? I said, I'll be in your office Monday morning. So I quickly went back to my friend's apartment, got on the phone, called my wife. I said, you can't believe what just happened. It's all happening now. And we're gonna start making money again. And this contract could be worth tens of thousands of dollars. And what I heard back from the other end of the phone was, so what? And immediately my bubble gets burst, and I'm going, so what? Don't you understand? So I went from interest, and I dropped down to impatience. She's down here at apathy because she didn't care. And so now what we're doing is we're beginning to argue with each other. We're beginning to fight. Okay? What's the question here from Karen? Are there times when you just have to walk away from a deal, even if you've been trying to make it happen for a while, because the other side are just too greedy, self-centered as a way to change your stance? Okay, hold on to that thought. We'll get to that. Let me finish this one. It's a good one though, Karen. Okay, so what's the problem? Our mood levels are too far apart. If you understand the basics of communication, building rapport, empathy, all that stuff, it means an understanding and a closeness. The farther you are apart, the more aggravation there is in the middle, the more conflict develops in the middle, right? When you're trying to impose your will and somebody's trying to resist it, or vice versa, right? So if we understand that, I remembered what one of my teachers said, and he said that he had said, look, you have got to be able to duplicate. What's the word? Duplicate where the other person's at before you can move them up the scale. Okay, so what does duplicate mean? Well, she's apathetic. Does that mean I have to be apathetic? No, not at all. It just means I have to get that she's apathetic, and she's got to get that I get that she's apathetic, if that makes sense, right? So I quickly pulled back, took a breath, and said, it sounds to me like you just really don't care. You don't care. I didn't say it antagonistically. I just said it as a fact. It sounds like you just don't care. And at that point, I duplicated her. And she said, yeah, well, it's not that I don't care. It's just that I'm afraid that it's always going to be this way. You always on the road, blah, 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 blah. So what has she just done? So just above apathy is fear. Above that is sadness. Above that is covert hostility. Above that is actual overt anger. Above that is impatience. And above that actually comes up to interest and enthusiasm. So there's this whole scale, right? So I go all the way back down and duplicate where she's at. So and again, you got to be careful not to throw your attitude at it. Okay. Sounds to me like you just don't care. That's not going to work. Okay. So it sounds to me like you just don't care. And she goes, it's not that I don't care. It's just that I'm afraid. Fear, right? It's not that I'm just afraid that our life is always going to be this way. Us apart, you on the road. So already, because I duplicated, she began to come up the scale. Notice this? See if you can't identify this in a conversation you've had, okay? So now what's my job? Duplicate again. Well, and I say to her, well, if that's the way it was going to turn out to be, I'd be afraid of that too. I really just don't want us to be that way. Okay. So now where's she going to go? She goes from apathy to fear to covert hostility. So she goes, so what guarantee can you give me that this is just not going to be this way this time? Okay. So now she's almost hostile, which is actually way better than being apathetic and not even caring. Right. And I said, well, I don't know, but we need to sit down and we need to work this out because I think it's critical to our future. And if we can travel together and you can assist me and da. So now she's going, so, okay, so I get it. So tell me about this deal. How does this deal work? Impatience, interest. And I started telling her, she goes, well, what about this? And what about that? And that's awesome. So when are you going to do it again? When are you going to go talk to them? See what just happened in the course of about 2 minutes, we went from me up here and her down here to us. I went down here and then together we came back up here. Change the mood level. Here's something that is important for you to know. In sales, when you're dealing with another person who has a general interest in whatever it is you're selling, and you're dealing with them one-on-one, if you can change their mood level, elevate their mood level within 2 to 3 minutes, they will buy. They will buy. Now, you're not going to think of it at the time, but I would write that down because it's pretty powerful. And the times that I have done that, and because what happens is you get impatient, then you get angry. Okay, so angry is right in the middle, right? That hostility, covert, and then overt anger. Okay, so what happens? You go from enthusiasm down to anger, and as long as you're at anger and they're below, you're just going to keep fighting down there. Just duplicate it. Don't be angry. Acknowledge the anger. Just duplicate it to them, okay? So it feels to me like you're really angry right now. Yeah, I'm angry. So tell me about that. What are you angry about? Don't you get angry. Now you got two idiots talking to each other. Remember? Emotions high, intelligence is low. Okay, good. So again, it's about matching mood levels and raising the mood level of other people. Now, again, when doing deals or trying to get a team to operate or trying to convince your spouse of something that maybe they're not inclined to do, very helpful. But more important than all of that is you become a responsible leader and a communicator. Tony Robbins, I think, said it once. He goes, there's no such thing as really inflexible people. There are inflexible communicators, which I totally agree with. Inflexible communicators. And who's responsible? Remember the word responsibility? We talked about that last week, I believe. Responsible means you have the choice of how you respond to whatever happens. The other person could be totally unconscious, but as of right now, that's not you. You're now conscious. I made you aware of something. And if you choose to ignore it, then you go unconscious again. Okay? I shouldn't. Your little voice might be saying, I shouldn't have to change my behavior because somebody else is being a butthead. Okay? Yeah, maybe you shouldn't. And you can be right, or you could get what you want. Does that make sense? A lot of people hold on to the justification that I'm right and I don't need to be flexible. I'm not saying to compromise your values. I'm not saying to change your point of view. I am saying is to match or duplicate the emotion that you're being faced with, and a person will naturally come upscale a little bit more. Okay? So those are some initial tips on how to do this. From Tiffany, from Fishers, Indiana. I didn't even know there was a Fishers in Indiana. Love is the way forward. It is love, but sometimes when people are in a heightened emotional state and of low consciousness, they don't get love. It rolls off. Sometimes you have to just go get them where they are and acknowledge where they're at that moment. Okay, I'm responsible for what I'm said, not what you understood. Maybe. Okay, I'm going to say this. We have an expression in all of our programs that true communication is the response that you get. Aram, okay? True communication is the response you get. If you communicate and you don't get, if you order something at a restaurant from the waiter and you get back something else other than what you ordered, who's responsible? You can blame the waiter, but the initial communication came from you. What was it about your communication that could have been better, could have been more clear? What could you have done? Well, you could have ordered your food and verified it by repeating it, asking them to repeat it back to you, make sure that they got it before they went off to the kitchen. Could have done that. Maybe you didn't. Oh, I shouldn't have to do that. Maybe you shouldn't. But do you want to get the food that you want, or do you want to wait another 30 minutes to get the food that you ordered? Okay, so again, you are at some level responsible for the understanding. That's the difference between a great communicator and a casual communicator. Okay. So Kieran asked, is there a time to walk away from a deal? Let's say you're dealing with a person that's upset. They're angry or they're greedy. I think you had mentioned, Kieran. So yeah, of course there is. There always is. It's your choice. I'm not gonna. Let me give you an example. Another example of that when we sell products, we sell audio and video products. If you go to blairsinger.com and stuff like that, we used to offer guarantees for things, and I don't do it anymore. And the reason I don't offer guarantees for my products is not because I wouldn't guarantee it. It's just I had to deal with crazy things like people would get an audio program and with a 1-year guarantee, and on the 363rd day they'd ship it back because they needed money for rent or something like that. And it was like, really, I mean, it just created an administrative nightmare. If you want to change your values and your point of view in order to get a deal, I'm not going to recommend it, because at the end of the day, you got to look in the mirror and say, who am I? What do I represent? What do I stand for? And in this crazy world, I think that as a leader, that's probably more important than anything. So yeah, if you feel somebody's being too greedy or it doesn't work for you, say thank you. But tell them why and say, look, honestly, all things considered, I understand what you want to do, and I'm just really not interested in doing that. And if you can find somebody else that's willing to offer you what I offered you at whatever price that is, that's great. And have a good life with all that, if they're being greedy. Now, the other side of that is maybe you didn't sell it very well. Okay. Yeah, there's other people. There's another way of handling that. I understand that other people you can get what appears to be this same product or service, the same program on how to be a facilitator, for example. There are other people that have programs like that, and that they profess to deliver, and they may be less expensive. I will acknowledge all that, but here's what I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you that what you want to do in your life as a trainer, leader, and a facilitator is going to require some very, very special skill, some very special coaching, and some very special counseling. And if that's what you want, I'm pretty sure, after having been in this business for over 30 years, you're not going to find it any other place. So at the end of the day, who you want to be and where you want to go is right here. But if you want to save money, go ahead and save the money, but I don't think you're going to get what you want. Or on the flip side, somebody says, you're too expensive. You're too expensive. You're doing a course on, here's a good, you're doing a course on sales, Kieran. You're doing a course on sales. And it's like, yeah, but your program's too expensive. I would just laugh and I say, I got it. It's not the cheapest one on the block, but that's the reason you need to take this thing. If you're telling me it's too expensive, that's probably why other people are telling you you're too expensive. You need to put yourself in the zone of where people are coming to you and happy to pay you more money for what you're doing. That's why I want to teach you how to sell. This is a sales program. But if the minute you cave into it's too expensive, you're not selling anything. You got to sell people the end product, the zone, the place where people are coming to you because they love you and they know the value and the great testimonials that other people get. That's what you want, right? It's independent of the price. And if you can't make back the price in one sale, then I'm not the person for you to talk to. So it's also a little bit of an attitude along those lines too, okay? Tiffany, changed my life a few years ago at Matrix. Oh, I had no idea you were what to express. Little did I know it was a life-changing connection and experience. Keep you with me daily. Little voices. Thank you. We all have them. Thank you, Tiffany. That's very nice of you. Kieran also asked, how do you stop reacting to triggers, buttons that are pushed? I feel I get it right at times and fail at other times. Well, welcome to the human race. The simple answer to how to stop getting triggered is to get good coaching. My book, Little Voice Mastery, How to Win the War Between Your Ears in 30 Seconds, is I tell people that's my $500,000 book. Why? Because that's easily what I've spent on programs and courses and trainings and coaching over the last 25 years. Easily. Why? Because I know that if I want to get what I want, and I get triggered along the way, I'm never going to get it, right? And anybody that's ruthless will try to trigger me anyway and take advantage of me. So what do? I go to good coaches that every time I get triggered on something, they are able to ask the right questions. And by the way, we teach some of this in our Master Facilitator program. Teach not how to be a great coach doing this full time, but in the moment to be able to help allow people to make that transformational decision for themselves. So I get a lot of coaching. I have several coaches. I can think of 3 right now that I work with at least once a month, each of them, to peel back the onion, so to speak, to peel back the layers of to get to the source of what's causing the trigger. Because, I always say this, if I'm upset with you for more than about 5 minutes, it has nothing to do with you. It has to do with something that you triggered over here. And you may have talked to my friend over here and there's no problem with him, but there's a problem with me. Why? What's the difference? You're the constant. That didn't change. He's okay. It's me. What is in constant with all the triggers is you. So go get some coaching. There are certain type of people that when I was first in sales, large, Caucasian, gray-haired executives with thick black glasses on intimidated me. And so I go in and talk to them on a sales call and I nobody else, but it bothered me. Why? Well, because my girlfriend's dad was just like that. He was general manager of Frigidaire, which was a division of General Motors, and he had a very big position. He was very much of an authority. He always told me, "You're never going to amount to anything," and all this stuff. And so at that time in my life, when I would even just see somebody that looked like him, I was intimidated, which is ridiculous, right? So I got coaching to peel that back. Okay, so that's what's going on, and then I can choose again. So if you're going to be truly a great leader, I'm saying that in the 2020s going forward, if you're not actively getting coached in personal development by somebody that's really well qualified, and there are a lot of people doing it that are not, but there's a few that are really, really good. And if you're interested, go to blairsinger.com and I'll refer you to them. But I'm just going to say that if you don't do that, you're not going to achieve your dreams. You're just not going to get to where you want to go. Or if you do, it's going to be a tremendous struggle. And you shouldn't have to struggle, and you should surround yourself with great people. Okay. Let's see. I refer more in general. For example, a conference and debate. You can be so clear, but depending on your background or your context, you can understand it a different way. Okay, I'm not quite sure what you're saying there. Maybe you could say it a clear way. All right, you're welcome, Karen, for the answer. Another question. Why the title? Harmony, why the title? Aram, why the title? How to deal with upset people? Because that's what we're talking about. How do you deal with somebody else that's triggered? How do you deal with somebody who's at a different mood level than you? And so maybe a point of clarification. My point of view is in all these years, and when I deal with people that are in the way or creating resistance to me, it's usually because of what I'm talking to you about. It's because at some level, their mood levels we're not matching. They don't get it. They're not enthusiastic about it. And at some point I got to let it go. Or at other point, I just match their mood level. Now, if that doesn't work, then I walk away. Okay. It's just not going to work. Maybe a person has a fundamental difference with the way that I do things. That happens. Although I had a senior member of a very large network marketing company, not to be mentioned, that I worked with for several years. And he made when he was bringing me on stage once, several thousand people there, he said, "So you really want to listen to this guy, Blair Singer. And here's why." He goes, "We will go into a meeting where I fundamentally disagree with what he wants to do. But somehow by the end of the meeting, I'm totally agreeing with him. And I'm not sure how that happened." So, I mean, it was kind of tongue in cheek, but that's how I hold it. I believe that if people see the merits to the arguments that are on the table, they will come around. Not always, but in many cases. So when I think about upset people, I don't really think that a person is 100% upset, cranky, oppositional person all the time. I think it's because I caught them in a bad mood. I caught them in a situation they don't quite understand. And as being the responsible communicator, how I deal with upset people is by the methods I'm talking to you about right now. Okay. Okay, Aram. I don't need to deal with the negativity. You have to hear this negativity because part of the debate. Yeah, that's true. That's true. You have to hear it. You have to hear it and have to understand what's going on and not be, as someone said, not be triggered by it. Like I said, when it comes to, and those of you that are on this call week after week, you're going to understand point of view to things are not exactly what people expect. Because at the end of the day, it comes back to me. If I'm not getting what I want, I've learned a long time ago that blaming others and making excuses and all that stuff just doesn't work. So I will do everything in my power to make sure that I'm communicating well, that I'm matching mood levels, that I'm raising their energy level, that I'm proposing the best things of benefit to them. And if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. But usually I put the burden of proof on me. not on somebody else. And if somebody's negative, they're negative. And if it affects me, then I have to go get some coaching and find out, why am I so triggered by this? I go back to it. I'm not triggered anymore. The negotiation goes much better. It's a pretty simple formula for me. Okay. All right. Very good. So any other questions about this? Where are we? Okay. Yeah. We're about 30 minutes in. A couple other things as a download, as a weekly download. There's a lot of things that happened this week, and I want you to, I'm going to switch the subject a little bit because I think we've exhausted this one for right now. And that's this. I did a training over last weekend, 2 weekends ago, I believe. It was a tactical training. I may have mentioned that, taught by some extremely qualified instructors. Tactical training. That means this is training that law enforcement officers get, that firefighters and first responders get, how to deal with a situation in a crunch, particularly when there's emergency and danger on the line, and how do you deal with that? And it takes a very special person to do that. And I was asked to be there because of my my personal development background and be able to help people in that area. And I went, but in this first run, I actually went through the program. So it was a very powerful program. And so one of the instructors said in one of the exercises, asked a very simple question: who are you? Who are you? Now, let me give you the context. The context for that is, who are you? And he talked about something called a loyalty chain, a chain of loyalty. In other words, if you have to make a decision, maybe even a life or death decision, who comes first, second, third, fourth, or fifth? Now, it's a very tough decision that most of us in our lives would never have to make. But I entertained the thought, and let me explain what happened. He said, who are you? And I thought, well, I'm a teacher, I'm a trainer, I'm a husband, I'm a father. But they seemed, in the context, they seemed a little shallow. And so, and he says, based on the evidence, he said, most people would say to themselves, like, you know, what's your priority? Who are your priorities and who are you? Is family comes first. He says, but if you check the evidence in the person's life, it may not appear that way. In other words, somebody says, my family comes first, but they're never home. They're always on the road. They're never with the kids. The other spouse brings up the kids, but family's my number one. Okay, could be, but like I said, the evidence doesn't appear that way. So whatever your thoughts are on this, but here's what came up for me. Based on the evidence, if I were to ask myself, who am I? The only thing I could come up with was an example. I'm an example, and so are you. So when you're dealing with upset people, you're an example. When you're dealing with people that are on your side, you're an example. When you're dealing with your kids, you're an example. When you're dealing with the general public, you're an example. And what do I mean by that? You could be a good one or you could be a bad one. But the minute you decide to lead, the minute you decide to be an instructor, the minute you decide to teach or anything, now you are a leader and you are an example. So as you go through this week, I'm going to have you think about that. Maybe we'll bring it up again next week. Who are you based on the evidence? And that doesn't mean you can't change. That doesn't mean it has to be that way. But who are you right now as an example? And it was very, very powerful for me. I think one of the examples he used, it was a horrible example, but I'll share it with you. He said, okay, so what's your loyalty chain? You have 3 other family members. They're in the water and they're drowning, and you have one life jacket. Okay. Now they're separated. There's no, all the clever ideas of how you could bring them together and save all of them are gone. You can't get in the water. All you can do is throw this life jacket. Just assume that that's the case. Who'd you throw it to? You have 2 kids, a wife, husband, whatever. Who would you? And I don't know. I can answer that question, but what he said is that as a law enforcement officer, as a soldier, as a warrior, making decisions, he said there are some decisions that are worse than dying, and I didn't understand what that meant at all. But through the course of the program, I began to understand that there is something that's maybe more important than that. Your honor, your code, your loyalty, your love, your commitment to others. And so that's why, and the reason it struck me so, and I tack it on to this topic here, is it because it goes back to my core philosophy, which is most people are good people. And that it's if something's not working in the communication, I'm going to take responsibility for it first. My reaction is my reaction. My triggers are my triggers. Has nothing to do with them. They're there. They triggered it, but it's up to me to deal with it because it's on my side. And so, as an example of a leader, that's where I come from. And my desire is to not ever have to be in a position where I have to choose who I'm throwing a life jacket to. That's for sure. But I want people to know that I care. I want people to know that I love them. I want them to know that any upsets that go on are momentary and mostly have to do with me. And give me a timeout. I'm going to go work on it and find out where that came from. I'll come back. I'll be good. You operate from that perspective. You're going to find that you get a lot more out of life. You're going to find there's a lot of people, your reputation will be sterling. And you're going to find that there'll be a lot of great people that want to hang around you. Okay. So anyway, let's see if there's any other questions here. Anybody else have any more questions? All right. Very good. All right. So again, hopefully this was of benefit to you. I'm going to sign off for right now, and I'll see you again next week. If you have any questions, let me know. Post them on my Facebook page. Say, look, I have this issue. I'd like to talk about this. I'd like to talk about that. Anything in the area of communication, personal development, team development, even sales development. And I'll do my best to support you, okay? So again, thank you. Have a great weekend. I'll see some of you at the Master Facilitator program tomorrow. Again, those of you that are not able to do that, just go to our YouTube channel. Check it out. There's a lot of this materials up there. There's a ton of videos at blairsinger.com that will give you the answers to some of the pressing questions that you have. And you deserve to have a good life, and you deserve to have people respond to you the way you want. Remember, communication is the response that you get, not that you deliver, but the response that you get. All right. So be awesome.